My very first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, and it was released 1997, and I never finished the game. And even worse, I completely ignored the PlayStation 5 remake, which is a very big mistake. And because of my great community, I finally tested the PlayStation 5 version, and what should I say? Amazing. Wow, this game is brilliant. And I'm not talking about the gameplay, because I know the gameplay from back then. Gameplay is superb. I'm talking about the new visuals, and I'm not even talking about HDR, because for HDR there's just one word: stunning.
Glad I got today off. Am I still going to have a job? Guess I'll find.
What do you know? That ain't half bad. I'll make a goose monkey out of you yet. Thanks. I've always dreamed of opening up my own shop, so I can look after my parents, you know?
Arlene.
Daddy, you're home!
That's right, Angel, I am. Have you been a good girl?
Yeah, I've been helping Tifa.
Oh, you did you? Well, well.
You made it. Where'd you get that? I can't remember the last time I saw a real one. Huh? How sweet. When did you get so thoughtful?
Guy can change. Has been 5 years.
Huh?
I need to talk to Barrett.
Right. Come on in.
What about black level rays in Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 5? And no, we don't have any black level rays in this game, at least not when we're looking at loading screens or when we're looking on the main screen where you just have the Final Fantasy logo. There is 0 black level rays. Not on my LG G2, not on my CX. Brightness setting 50 is perfect OLED black. But what I found is, and this is unfortunately in many games, we have some sort of elevated grayscale. In this game, very minor, absolutely minor, and you have to look very closely. Like on sceneries like this, you can spot it when you look very closely in a complete dark room. But again, it is so minor. I wouldn't change anything in terms of the fine-tuned dark area settings, and I wouldn't change anything in terms of brightness. Just enjoy this game and the great HDR. And as many other games, Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 5 does not support the HDR system level calibration on the console. And before I share with you my recommended settings for Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 5, let's take a quick look on the graphic settings in terms of the HDR settings. We have HDR luminance, we have HDR darkness, HDR brightness and the UI brightness. The first setting what we have is HDR luminance. Standard setting is 10, and this setting is responsible for the maximum peak brightness from specular highlights in this game. Then we have a setting called HDR darkness, and you must leave this at 0, and here's why. The next one is called HDR brightness, and this setting is responsible for the overall brightness in the game, but it will also affect the maximum peak brightness from specular highlights. And last but not least, we have the UI brightness, which is, as always, absolutely up to you, because this setting is not affecting HDR in this game at all. And here we are with my recommended settings for Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PlayStation 5. For the LG CX, C1, C2 and G1, I would recommend a HDR luminance setting from 7 or 8, maximum 8, because this will give you a maximum peak brightness in the game from around 720 candela to 758 candela, which of course fits the CX and similar TVs just perfectly. For TVs like the LG G2, A95K, S95B or with TVs with a maximum peak brightness of around 1000 candela, I would recommend to leave HDR luminance at 10 because this will give you the maximum peak brightness of this game, which is, by the way, limited to 928 candela, but this is just perfect for TVs like the G2, A95K or S95B. And then we have TVs like the QN90AB, QN95AB with a maximum peak brightness of around 1700 candela, but unfortunately the game is limiting HDR to around 930 candela, even with HDR luminance set to 10. And I can't stress this enough, HDR darkness must be set to 0, otherwise the game will not display very fine specular highlights on darker objects. And then we have the HDR brightness, and regardless of what monitor or screen are you using, I would recommend to leave this at 10. And last but not least, we have the UI brightness, but as I mentioned this already, this is absolutely up to you because this setting has no impact on HDR at all. And then as always, there's just one question left. Should you use dynamic tone mapping on, dynamic tone mapping off or HGIG? And in this game there's just one clear winner. It is HGIG. Dynamic tone mapping on will just overbrighten the picture, in my opinion, way too much, and you will lose a lot of very fine details in specular highlights like here. And as in many other games, I can't recommend to use dynamic tone mapping off because you will lose a lot of maximum peak brightness on specular highlights. For me, there's just one way to play this game on LG TVs, and that's with HGIG. Thanks to the great implementation from HDR, this is the best picture mode or tone mapping mode actually. It will give you the best detailed specular highlights because dynamic tone mapping on is just overblown the picture, in my opinion. It makes it very bright and you will lose a lot of specular highlights, as I have shown you before. And no, reducing the brightness in the setting menu is not an option because then you will lose also the maximum peak brightness in this game. So you will reduce actually the peak brightness from the game, which makes it even worse. So in my opinion, the only way is HGIG. Okay, so what is my summary now for Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 5? Must play, full stop. It is a must play, not just because of the great optics and visuals and especially HDR on a TV like the G2. Gameplay wise, I completely forgot how great this game actually was, and usually, and I don't want to spoil it too much here, but usually I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to JRPGs because of the story and so much text and stuff like that, but Final Fantasy VII is, in my opinion, a must play, and sadly I know already that I don't have enough time to play this great game, but I will try it. Okay, so for you, this is a must play in my opinion. It is on PlayStation Deluxe or PlayStation Plus or whatever right now available for the PlayStation 5, so check it out, download it and start playing this great game. Thank you very much for watching me. I see you guys next time. Bye.